Where there's thunder, there's lightning. John Nada. So many of you are already aware that Stardust is no longer on YouTube, and he has a channel now on Rumble. And we all kind of knew that this was coming. I mean, there have been a lot of channels that have come and gone over the years, but Stardust was one of the mainstays for sure. And he even said it himself, it was a matter of time before the powers that be came after him as well. And the only reason that my channel, I think, has persisted and has lasted as long as it has is simply because it's really just not that big. I mean, I may get a couple hundred views or a couple thousand views. And this channel has never been monetized. So I'm sure eventually my channel will also go the way of many channels. But I think the simple fact that it is so small has been what has protected it from such a fate at this time. And Stardust has mentioned before on his channel about a friend he had several years ago that came to the conclusion of, well, you know, Stardust, you're just too depressing, you're just too negative, and basically we can't associate anymore. Which made me think of the idea of being prospered by those sent to you. And for many of us, particularly as men, we don't have many people throughout our lives that have been sent to prosper us. And in fact, it almost seems the opposite. It's this situation where if you can't do for me, then we can't be associated. And so you must cherish and value those people that have been sent your way to prosper you, and really do all that you can to get knowledge and wisdom and support, because it seems like for men in life, there's just too few of those people to go around. And the fact of the matter is that for many of us, being around even acquaintances, people we work with, even sometimes family, it's no different than being in a crowd for many of us. But YouTube and many of these other social media conglomerates are simply a reflection of the hive mind. And so the things that I say on my channel, the things that Stardust said on his channel, and indeed many other channels that speak the truth, we're saying things that indeed are not popular, and certainly not things that most people would say out loud. That's why the whole concept of a unicorn is just simply that, a concept. Because it doesn't matter what woman you meet. It doesn't really even matter what people you meet for the most part. Everybody wants acceptance. Everybody wants to belong. And that's the whole thing. It's the myth of belonging. Most of my life has been spent trying to belong somewhere. And I'm sure for many of you that's been the same struggle. And it's taken me several decades to come to the conclusion that, well, maybe I just simply don't belong anywhere. And maybe that's okay. No one is going to have it all. And I think that's where a lot of our ills and a lot of our troubles in life come from, is in this trying to have it all. We want friends. We want relationships. We want $1 million. We want a successful career. We want. But keeping up with the Joneses just seems to create more misery. You'll never have everything. And indeed, there are many of us that wanted kids at some point. Many of us that the greatest thing that we could think of doing was becoming a family man, becoming a father and a husband. But the more that I see of society and the direction of things, the more clear it becomes that not everyone needs to have kids. So MGTOW in many ways is a cope, but MGTOW is also about freedom. And when we say freedom, I feel like this is a word that gets thrown around quite a bit, but we don't really define what it is or what it really means. And for everyone that's going to look different, but freedom ultimately is about choice and control. It's the ability to walk away and not be acted on. And at the end of the day, it's the ability to answer to no one but yourself. For a lot of us, particularly those that aren't that well-to-do or well-off financially, life is like a roller coaster. It seems like there's a lot of moments of boredom. I mean, when you don't have the means to really do much or the opportunity to really do much, it's a lot of just waking up, going to work, coming home, rinse, repeat. But there's also those moments of terror too, right? You have a health scare, or you don't know how you're going to make ends meet. How am I going to pay rent? How am I going to pay the mortgage? The brakes went out on my car, so on and so forth. We've all kind of been there with that, especially if you are not someone of means. But for wealthy people, it seems like there's not that much to worry about. They may get the occasional health scare. I mean, none of us are immune to death. None of us are immune to the ravages of old age, the ravages of disease. But for the most part, most of the things that your average, everyday guy, everyday person might have to worry about, not really a concern for somebody that has money. And we know as men, we're going to have a much harder go of it right off the bat. Women have support systems that men don't have. Women tend to receive more positive feedback. Women are more outgoing as a result of the support systems and feedback that they do get that's positive, which then plays into the whole women are wonderful effect. You line up your average man and your average woman, and I guarantee the woman will have more opportunity, if for no other reason than just maybe even her looks. But the man will be looked at automatically with suspicion because he's a man in a way that a woman would not be. And speaking of average, average Joe has changed. What was average Joe several decades ago? What was average Joe in the 80s, 90s, and before? What was average Joe even in the early 2000s? It's no longer the same thing. There's just simply less of the pie to go around. One simply only need to look at the job market, the jobs that are available out there, and most of them are barely able to cover basic needs: food, rent, utilities, mortgages, medical expenses, vehicle expenses. And especially for guys, the amount of work out there that pays a livable wage and is also somewhat desirable is a lot more minuscule in comparison to the work out there available for women. A lot of women work easy jobs. You know, they work these make-ready jobs. They sit in an office, you know, making 50, 60, 70,000 a year, some of them. A lot of these jobs all without a college degree. And yet for many men, the only way to make comparable money is to be in a back-breaking trade industry or to simply work an overabundant amount of overtime, leaving little to no personal time to do anything else. When I say MGTOW is cope, in a lot of ways it is, because many of us have grown up with the trope of, well, if I just put my nose to the grindstone, I work hard, do well in school, the bully will work for me. But the reality of it is, when many of us get into adulthood, it's the bully that we're working for. It's the high school jock that we were told was going to work for us one day. And the reality of it is, that's who's in middle to upper management. It's the idea that many women will face a reckoning for not choosing the good, stable, decent guy, because they will hit the wall. And yes, the wall is real. But the reality of it is there will always be some guy out there willing to wife up someone of depreciating values and a passel of kids. At best, you have short-circuited the ability for many women to simply settle. And MGTOW in many ways is the knowledge of knowing that the most you can hope for is possibly being debt-free, having the ability to have some fun in life, having the ability to make a good paycheck, and hopefully having good health. When society talks about, young men and them dropping out and young men and the suicide rate, it makes it seem almost as if they care. But something that I notice is we kind of start talking about the suicide rate among men the older they get. It's almost like we only care about young men because they have so many more productive years ahead of them. But if you're a middle-aged guy or older, well, you've kind of used up your usefulness as far as society is concerned. A lot of the gurus would say this is depressing talk. A lot of the gurus would look at reality and want you to think that it's something different. But it's not that it's a depressing talk. It's not that these things are depressing in and of themselves. This is just simply how a lot of the world and a lot of life is for many people, particularly men. But the Jocko Willinicks of the world would have you believe that everybody can be a Navy SEAL. That if you just put enough work in, read enough books, think positively enough, that you will be amongst the 6% that actually become a Navy SEAL. This is that Matthew effect loop we talk about. Jocko Willenick was obviously somebody growing up who was a Chad. He was somebody that probably had many talents and gifts from birth and maybe never really faced that much hardship in accomplishing his goals and setting out to do what he wanted to do in life. But this just simply isn't a reality for a lot of people. Again, most of us are average, right? MGTOW, at the end of the day, is a rejection of the system. It's like Bill Murray said in Meatballs, it just doesn't matter. It's not about being depressing. It's not about the black pill. It's not about giving up. It's just simply many of us are just tired. And we just want some small measure of peace in this life, some small measure of enjoyment. At the end of the day, we're tired of keeping score, and we just want to live at peace. So at the end of the day, what advice can be given? What solutions are there to explore? We talk a lot about pills in this community, red, black, purple. But at the end of the day, if you take too many pills, you will OD. It's important to drown out the racket, the noise that this world brings about, that life brings about, because life is difficult. But at the end of the day, you only get one. And it's important that you're the one making the decisions, you're the one in the pilot seat. And as we always say, go your own way or don't. The choice is yours.